Hello, what about you? Very welcome. Thank you for joining me. A special thanks, as always, to my little band of Patreon followers who throw in £5 a month to enable me to continue to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Aye. Just when you think the Israeli government and the IDF have hit rock bottom in their brutal, inhumane genocidal attack on the Palestinians, they managed to find a trapdoor. I've already touched on the utterly tragic story of the Palestinian pediatric surgeon, whose home was bombed by the IDF on the 23rd of May, killing 9 of her 10 children, leaving only her doctor husband and one son clinging to life. Well, sadly, her husband, Dr. Hamdi al-Najjar, 40, died last Saturday of his injuries. The couple had founded a private medical compound in Khan Yunis, of which Hamdi was the head. His brother, Dr. Ali al-Najjar, described him as a loving father who would tend to poor patients for free. A British surgeon working in the hospital who operated on the surviving son told the BBC that it was unbearably cruel that his mother, Ala, who'd spent years caring for children as a paediatrician, could lose almost her whole family in one IDF strike. Response from the IDF has been the usual stock response to such atrocities, saying that they were reviewing the circumstances around the attack. The sad truth is, such war crimes are happening daily as the IDF continue to starve and bomb the Palestinian population into extinction. Having now demanded the ethnic cleansing of the north of Gaza, having reduced that part of the country to a smouldering wasteland reminiscent of cities after the Second World War, the IDF have now driven that starving population south and are now continuing their policy of using starvation as a tool of war against all international conventions of war. Having denied the UN and other international support agencies access to Gaza to feed the millions now starving, the Israelis, backed by the USA, have set up what they call the GHF, or Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. One top UN aid boss has said it should be called the Inhumanitarian Foundation. This foundation is run, would you believe, by a group of American security contractors, ex-military officers and humanitarian aid officials. Which means, in good old USA, capitalist style, aid has been privatized. So far, this new body has been found wanting in where there were once 400 distribution centres right across Gaza. The GHF presently only operates at 4 known sites, with only 2 operating at any one time. Their new system demands that those seeking food must walk miles to collect it, meaning that Palestinians, sick, elderly, and the 1,000 disabled by IDF shootings and bombings will be left to starve. But worse, this is hard to believe. On the first days of its operation, the GHF distribution centres, it ended up dozens of those seeking help were shot and killed by IDF forces as they made their way to get food. Having been corralled down a barbed wire corridor towards the distribution centres, starving Palestinians were attacked from tanks, drones, and even IDF ships at sea, leading to dozens of fatalities, with the IDF again saying that they shot at those not adhering to the designated approaches towards the distribution centres. Make no mistake, what we are witnessing in real time is the clinical ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian population from Gaza by the Israeli government. And there can be no more doubt about this, because we've heard this last week from the Israeli Prime Minister's mouth, when he set out his reality, which he said, under the aid mechanism, Gaza's population would eventually be moved to the sterile South Zone. And Gaza's, and he argued that this was for their own protection, while Israeli forces fought Hamas everywhere else. He also said, and this is the clincher, this is the proof. He said that those moved south by the IDF, that they don't necessarily go back. The slaughter in Gaza makes the Balkans look insignificant. But unlike in the Balkans, where an international force from the USA, UK and other nations intervened, today the world turns its face to the wall. And I argue in doing so loses any pretense, if any pretense existed, of being the custodians of decency, democracy and humanity. You just look for some wee spark of hope, you know what I mean? You'll take whatever's offered. Because while the IDF present themselves and their forces as superhuman warriors, they're all kitted out. You ever see the pictures of them with all their kit and all their armour and all their guns and all their stuff posing? Not hard to do when all you're doing is remotely killing women and children with bombs and drones. Well, I believe we had a truer glimpse of their true nature last weekend. IDF soldier Shuki Farage decided to face off against West Belfast fighter Paddy McCory at Cage Warriors 189 event in Rome. Wasn't a good idea. Wasn't a good idea. Paddy won the event unanimously, having humiliatingly beat the living shite out of the IDF soldier. He beat him around that octagon like a child. So dominant was Paddy that he had time to scream into your man's ear, "Free Palestine," as he had him cowered on the ground.
Free Palestine! McCory addressing his fans at Quayside. Big elbows from McCory. And it's over.
That's the IDF soldier. He got to the ground like a wee bitch and turned into a ball, begging and hoping that the final bell would ring under the Irishman's onslaught. Whoo! You see, the problem he hadn't realised was he wasn't fighting an unarmed woman or a child. He was fighting an Irishman. Fighting an Irishman. And at the end, when Paddy draped the Palestinian flag over his shoulders and screamed into the cameras, his scream wasn't just the scream of a fighter in victory. It was a scream which echoed the frustration and anger of millions of decent people around the world faced to watch the genocidal slaughter being perpetrated by Shuki Farage and his colleagues in the IDF.
Unanimous decision in the right corner, Paddy.
My genuine congratulations go out to Paddy for allowing us for one moment to see some degree of justice enacted on the cowardly bullies and thugs who wear the IDF uniform. This didn't come in a vacuum, of course. The Irish government has led the world in its condemnation of the Israeli assault in Gaza, with Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris only last week saying that Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, making Ireland one of the first European nations to recognise that fact. In May last year, the Irish government recognised the state of Palestine along with a host of other European countries, including Spain. UK remains silent. They all remain silent. The truth is, for all their military superiority, Israel has lost this war because it has shown itself as a rogue state no different from Libya, Syria, or Afghanistan. It has finally squandered any lingering international sympathy following the Shoah by demonstrating it is willing to inflict the same suffering and death on the Palestinians as was enacted on Israelis in the 30s and 40s in Europe. And I say this as someone who has always argued for the right for the existence of the State of Israel. And I still do. But only as part of a two-state solution where Palestine is given land which is recognized and respected not just by Israel, but by the world. Because Israel should be worried. You really should be worried. I'm the boy who read the works of Primo Levi. I'm the guy who learnt about the slaughter in the Nazi concentration camps. I'm the man who, when I grew up, even visited Auschwitz to see it with my own eyes. Which makes it all the more horrific and bewildering that a nation born in the wake of such brutality and suffering could morph into what Israel has become today. As I reiterate, you've won this battle, but you have lost the war. For you've lost this respect and support of most of humanity. And your only remaining backer is that orange-haired psychopath, lunatic, currently sitting in the White House. As the slaughter in Gaza rolls on nauseatingly week after week, month after month, with the IDF killing mercilessly men, women and children, medics, journalists, humiliating anyone who even tries to go to get food. You want some degree of natural justice. You do cry out for some degree, not of retribution, but some degree of accountability. Because the IDF, they present themselves as these superheroes, these super warriors, all kitted out in their top American gear given to them by the USA. Their bulletproof vests, their big guns, their tanks, their planes, their rockets. As they sit in bunkers killing women and children with drones and bombs, they're these super warriors. Well, you just had a moment last week where we got a true view of these so-called superheroes and super warriors. And that came in the shape of a cage fighter called Shuki Faraj. This is Shuki in all his gear. Look at Shuki, isn't he a big guy? Look at him in all his gear. Well, Shuki faced off in Rome in 189 Cage Warriors event against, would you believe it, a West Belfast fella. West Belfast guy called Paddy McCory in the event last week. And let's just say Shuki made a mistake. Because Shuki got in to fight a Paddy. He got in to fight an Irishman. He wasn't fighting an unarmed woman or child. He was in a ring with a very, very angry Irishman. Now, Paddy McCory won unanimously, but he done more than win unanimously. He beat the living shite out of the IDF soldier. He slapped that wee bastard round that ring like he was a child. He even had time at the end to scream into the wee bitch's ear, "Free Palestine," as he had him pinned on the ground at the end of the round.
McCory addressing his fans at K-side. Big elbows from McCory. And it's over.
Well, he shouted a few other things, but you can understand why. There you have your IDF soldier, when they don't have the guns and the tanks and the bombs and the protective wear. There's your true IDF soldier, a wee bitch, card on the ground, shiting himself, praying for the final bell. And when Paddy was awarded the win, he draped the Palestinian flag around his shoulders and screamed into the camera. Now, watch this scream, because this isn't just the scream of a victorious fighter who has just won his fight. This scream echoes the frustration of millions around the world at the brutality of the IDF. Go on, Paddy, you legend ye. Thank you for giving us that wee moment. Thank you. You will always be a legend. As a matter of course, I've always avoided meeting local politicians, especially socially. Well, this is down to the fact that as a political satirist, I know that there's a distinct possibility that I'll either already have insulted them, or if not, then I probably will do so in the very near future. So I just sort of stay out of their way. Now, my criticism of our political class has led to an unfortunate misconception that I hold them all in the same low esteem. This is not the case. Admittedly, we do seem to be blighted by an uncharacteristically high number of intellectually challenged, culturally myopic miscreants, seemingly incapable of uttering a sentence which doesn't begin with "What foretell is a situation? Is a situation? What foretell is a cause of them the other shade? As Timmins on the other shades? What foretell responsible for the whole thing? It always says so it is. As Timmins on the other shade." But I would recognise it would be a crass misrepresentation to lump all these elected representatives, of whom there are an inordinate number, considering how minuscule our population. Well, it'd be wrong to lump them all into the same boat. So let me state here today, sitting here, that I can think of at least four. No, 7. No, I'd say 9. I'd say 9 local politicians who would be successful politicians in a normal society where being elected wasn't down simply to a sectarian head count. One of that number would have been Michelle Gildernew, the ex-Sinn Féin MLA and MP for Fermanagh and South Tyrone. Now, unbelievably, I happened to bump into Michelle many years ago while at lunch in Belfast. I was sitting there having my lunch when I became aware that someone was looming over me from behind. On looking up, I discovered none other than Michelle Gildernew looking down at me. She reached over and placed a glass of water in front of me, saying, "I always said if I met you, I'd buy you a drink." And with that, she turned and walked away. I have to admit, I was tickled greatly by this, for it demonstrated something strikingly lacking in most of our politicians, namely a sense of humour. And a devilish sense of humour at that. So I was genuinely surprised to hear this week that Sinn Féin had decided to end their relationship with Gildernew. This Michelle Gildernew, after all, was one of their most successful electoral candidates and a stalwart of republicanism in Mid-Ulster for decades. And unlike many of her colleagues, she was an articulate exponent of the cause of Sinn Féin, never once putting a foot wrong either in her public or private life. Her only electoral defeat came in the European elections, but at that time, the Deputy Leader, Michelle O'Neill, gave this assurance about the future of Michelle Gildernew.
That's because her career as an elected politician ended when she failed to gain a seat to the European Parliament in the Republic last year. At the time, this was the party response.
But there'll absolutely have to be a role for Michelle in going forward. She has been a stalwart in that constituency for so long, and she would be backed in whatever role, whatever form that would take.
Well, considering what's happened this week, we must presume something has changed in Michelle O'Neill's attitude. Could that change possibly be down to the fact that Gildernew supported John O'Dowd and not her when they both ran for the role of deputy leader? Surely not, I hear you cry. That is the sort of petty politics those other parties practice. Such behaviour would be beneath the likes of Sinn Féin, where brother and sister link arms in comradeship in their march to inevitable Irish reunification. Bellings. Now, when disappointed at her removal, Michelle Gildernew remained composed and continued to exhibit the dignity she has throughout her political career when she was asked about this new turn in her life. She refused to criticise her party. She refused to criticise Sinn Féin, saying she was owed nothing. Though I'd argue her decades of service to that party should have merited more than she has received. Only at the very end of that interview did she reveal any hint of her real feelings. When having been asked about her relationship with Michelle O'Neill, she admitted this.
Earlier about Michelle O'Neill, maybe I'm wrong. I get the impression you and her are not necessarily on the same page, or bosom buddies, as we might put it.
Oh, she's a few years younger than me, and we work together in the assembly and all. But no, I have. There's other people in the party who I'm closer to.
There you have it. And so ends a political career, proving that here, as everywhere else, advancement up that greasy pole of politics has little to do with competency, and the knife in your back will more likely arrive from the hand of a supposed friend than perceived enemy. Et tu, Michelle. Et tu. So this week, two men, maybe this is one of the first times this happened. Two men in the shape of Jared Farmer and Paul Doherty. Well, they've been convicted of running the biggest illegal dump site in the whole of Europe. In the whole of Europe, up in Derry. Culmore Road. And the hundreds and hundreds of millions of tons of waste has been buried under the soil up there, which is now fermenting and a natural disaster waiting to happen. So they're up in court. They finally pleaded guilty and for charges in 2011, 2013. One of them was jailed for 21 months, and the other one was jailed for whatever it was. Now, here's my thing. It's estimated that they earned 40 million quid. 40 million pound. I went in the whole case. I don't know all the details, but do they get to keep that money? Like, do they get to keep their ill-gotten gains? Because if I thought I could get 20 million quid and do 2 years, I'd do 2 years. Do you understand? That's no deterrent. That is no deterrent at all. If I thought I could put away 20 million pound and all I'd have to do is go to McGabry for 2 years, I would happily sign myself in. So I think there needs to be some sort of look at that. You know what I mean? We need to, really, because the river up there, there's every chance it's going to be poisoned. It's going to take 100 million to fix this. It's going to take 100 million to put this right. We're paying for that. So I think there is a wee bit of a breakdown here in punishment v. reward. You know, I think the reward of doing the wrong thing still outweighs the punishment of doing the wrong thing. So that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. It's happened occasionally. I'm wrong, but we need to start doing something about this, people. You know what I mean? It's bad shit. And it is shit. It's bad shit.
You'll do nothing. You hear me? You'll do nothing.